for being here. Can I thank also the Lord Lieutenant for being here, Lady Verulam, also the Mayor and the Mayoress. Can I also welcome our MP, Charles Walker, and also the Revd Canon John Williams, and Peter Headington, who will be leading our address. Can I also thank all those young people that have turned up today from St Catherine's School, also from the Royal Barclay Academy, and we welcome them here today. The ceremony is dedicated to the remembrance of those who suffered in the Holocaust and in subsequent genocides in Cambodia, Rwanda, Bosnia and Darfur. Its date is the anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz concentration camp in 1945. But let us also remember the victims and the people of Ukraine now and at the hour of their need, and to those millions who perished in the great famine in Ukraine in the 1930s. This year's theme asks the question, how can life go on? It recognises how the aftermath of the Holocaust and subsequent genocides continues to raise challenging questions for individuals, communities and nations. This commemoration invites us all to pause and reflect on the tragedy of the Holocaust and genocides. The theme, how can life go on, will be in our thoughts as we stop for a moment together to remember the millions of people who have been murdered or their lives changed beyond recognition. The Holocaust and subsequent genocides took place because persecution was allowed to take root. Holocaust Memorial Day is an annual reminder to us to all work together to make sure we do our utmost to prevent such genocides ever taking place again. The path of freedom to choose to do rather than choose not to is hard, but one path we must never choose is the path of submission or surrender.
Gather me in from all the ends of time, from wood and stone. Embrace me like letters of a burning prayer book. Gather me together so I can be alone. Alone with you and you in all my limbs. Find me in a grave between the other world and here, while weighing which of the worlds is better. Find me as you average half a tear, and when you see me cooling a hot knife in the snow, remember the cloud is sold through with my bones and rains down my lightning face. Gather me together so I can be alone, alone with you and you in all my limbs.
Never shall I forget that night, the first night in camp that turned my life into one long night, 7 times sealed. Never shall I forget that smoke. Never shall I forget the small faces of the children whose bodies I saw transformed into smoke under a silent sky. Never shall I forget those flames that consume my faith forever. Never shall I forget the nocturnal silence that deprived me for all eternity of the desire to live.
On the 3rd page of the book,
never shall I forget those moments that murdered my God and my soul and turned my dreams to ashes.
On page 4, she wrote her
Never
short
shall I
poem.
forget those things.
Dear Jewelty,
Even were
what
I
shall I write
condemned to
upon
live
this
as long
leaf?
as God
Wait,
himself.
dear Jewelty,
Never.
I already know. Health to you and all the best. Go out into the world, be good and brave. Whatever your fate will be, always remember, after every rain comes sunshine, in remembrance of your friend, Anne Frank.
Now I know this is a solemn occasion, but just to put a bit of lightness into it, I think when I was writing my address, I think Mark must have been looking over my shoulder, because what you've said, I've got. But anyway, it's no coincidence that the 27th of January each year was chosen as the day to commemorate Holocaust Memorial Day, because it was on that day, this day, in 1945, 72 years ago, that the concentration camp at Auschwitz-Birkenau was liberated by the Russian army. Today we remember not only the 6 million men, women and children who were victims of Nazi persecution, but also those who have been the victims of the subsequent genocides that have taken place more recently in Cambodia, Rwanda, Bosnia and Darfur. And it is sad to say that even today, persecution still exists. This year, the Holocaust Memorial Day Trust have chosen the theme of How Can Life Go On? The aftermath of the Holocaust and of the subsequent genocides continue to raise challenging questions for us as individuals, as well as for communities and nations throughout the world. Holocaust Memorial Day, known as Yom HaShoah, is not just about commemorating what has gone on in the past and remembering those who perished, but it is also about standing with those who have survived and being able to offer hope. Hope to the survivors in helping them to rebuild their lives by being able to reflect upon the lessons of their experiences and to challenge hatred and persecution and to prevent future atrocities. We must give hope to those who have been through the most appalling traumas as they try to find a route to recovery. Hope that we can all work together to ensure that such actions are never repeated, and hope that a solution is quickly found to the present conflicts that are taking place, especially in Syria. Ziggy Schipper, a Holocaust survivor, wrote, "There is nothing that we can do about the past, but we can do a lot about the present and the future." That is the hope that we must all strive for. In a few moments, flowers will be laid here at the memorial, and you will notice that around the base of this memorial there is a stone. Within the Jewish faith, it is customary to leave a small stone on a grave or memorial. This serves as a sign to others that someone has visited. Stones are fitting symbols of the lasting presence of the deceased's life and of their memory. And on the bench here at the front, I have placed a small bag of stones, and at the conclusion of this service, I invite you all to take a stone and place it at the base of this memorial if you wish to do so. Today we have posed the question, how can life go on? There will be countless hours of dialogue on this subject, but I answer the question with just one word: hope. Thank you. Shabbat Shalom.
The horrors of the Shoah bring people with or without faith to despair, and the questions arise. At Auschwitz, tell me, where was God? And the answer, where was man? And this carved on a concentration camp wall, if there is a God, he will have to beg for my forgiveness. Years ago, as a fairly simple student, I was fortunate enough to visit Yad Vashem, the subdued and yet deeply moving and unsettling World Holocaust Memorial in Jerusalem. And I also visited a little later on the UK Holocaust Memorial Centre, Bath Shalom, in Lincolnshire. And I'm sure visiting these, I, along with many thousands, have been moved by what is revealed there, revealed about our inhumanity. But it wasn't until I took my 2 young girls around Anne Frank House in Amsterdam that the story of a wonderfully talented and vulnerable young girl whose life was so cruelly taken, finally, the horrors of the Holocaust hit home. The statistics are appalling. But when we see the talent, love and potential of individuals, just like Anne, each one loved and giving love, then we see them in the image of God. Of course, I couldn't argue with Primo Levi, the Holocaust survivor, about the absence of God in the Holocaust because I wasn't there and haven't experienced anything remotely like it. But the story of individuals, that brings light to the darkness and good in the midst of so much evil. If you saw the BBC News last night, you may have heard the lawyer and author Philip Sands talking about new phrases that have entered the lexicon following the Nuremberg trials in 1945 at the end of the Second World War. These phrases and words, crimes against humanity and genocide. I'll quote him. Before 1945, if a state wished to kill huge numbers of its population, there was no rule or international law that could say it couldn't do that. The change happened in 1945, we know, very sadly, and this has not prevented these horrors from taking place. But it does mean that when horrors occur now, there is an objective standard which says to governments, you cannot do what you are doing, and through the International Court of Justice, you will be held to account. That horrors in Bosnia, Rwanda, and other places have happened and still happen since the events of the Holocaust is one of deep shame for our world. Today, marking this Holocaust Memorial Day, whether we are people of faith who cry out, "Where was God at Auschwitz?" or people of goodwill who seek a world of tolerance, we can be reunited around the intention to remember and so seek to prevent these things happening again. As Carlos Strenger, writing in Israel's newspaper, Haaretz, said, "The Holocaust must be remembered for its own sake and for the sake of humanity as a whole. We need to remember what humans are capable of and do anything we can to prevent genocide to reoccur anywhere." Well, today, from my own faith tradition, I take words that echo 2,000 years down the ages from that Jewish itinerant teacher, Jesus, whose simple message encapsulated the law of God's people when he said, "Love your neighbour as yourself." How we have failed to show love in the past is a terrible criticism of our world, but learning the lessons of the past, powerfully demonstrated by this Memorial Day, will, I hope, inform our prayer to no longer revisit these errors in the future.